Greetings and well met, fellow travelers. This is Gunn the Constantly Bewildered, here with another episode of Game Master Gunn. And today I wanted to talk about a bit about how I tell you guys about my rogue from time to time, but I've never really explained a lot about that character. And here I'm giving game mastering tips. But back in the day, I used to play a wonderful little rogue named Gunn the Savvy. Hence the reason why I'll introduce myself as Gunn the Savvy a lot of the times. And I brought along my Gunn the Savvy sunglasses, that if I'm playing this character, I must wear my sunglasses. But my rogue was, I was looking through the book, and I almost always play two classes, a barbarian or a rogue. I like chaotic characters. And I was looking through the book one day after playing my barbarian for quite some time. I was trying to figure out, okay, well, I'm getting sick of combat. It had gotten to the point with a barbarian that combat wasn't even a consideration for me. That, in fact, I really pissed off a DM with the barbarian once, because I had gotten to the point where at level 5, I could one-hit pretty much anything as long as I got into range quick enough. He came up with a wizard. The wizard had a few spells on him, but he was actually all about casting a fireball, like a maximized fireball, and it was supposed to wipe out whoever it hit. But I crit succeeded on my initiative, hit the wizard, and did 64 points of damage, pretty much cleaving the wizard in half. So I was done with combat. I wanted to play something new. And looking through the book, I was trying to figure out, okay, well, what can I play that I'm not so combat heavy, it'll be a lot of fun, I can role play it. Because at the time I was kind of going through that, I was trying to get into role-playing a little bit more. And I came across the rogue, which, if you haven't played old AD&D, in the new versions and in Pathfinder and everything else, the rogue is all about damage. He's the DPS role. That you get a flank up, you get the rogue behind the flank, you get your sneak attacks, and you just instantly kill everything. But especially even in like D&D 3.5 and 4 and Pathfinder, you'll see a lot of what the rogue used to be. And the rogue used to be a little bit of everything. And that was fantastic. You got a lot of skills. You were pretty much capable of anything. You could be diplomatic. You could be the intimidator, the thug. You could have a high strength or a high intelligence or a high charisma or a high wisdom, and you could still play a really good rogue. You just had to kind of specialize on whatever your stats gave you. So looking through the book, I found the rogue, and I decided, well, I don't want to play a rogue that's about damage. I want to play a rogue that's about everything else. So, and that's where Gunn the Savvy started. Was I had rolled an intelligence charisma rogue. That he was brighter than shit and he could talk his ass off, and that's all I knew about him. And I started going through the skills, and I came up with all these different little ideas. And I had all these different little tactics. But on top of that, at the same time, I was reevaluating the book and everything, I started looking through the items. And I found a whole bunch of items that nobody really uses. Like, you never really see a team of people use the battering ram, or the hand mirror, or the tinder sticks, or the tanglefoot bags. And I was looking through all these items and I'm like, damn, somebody should be using these. These are cool fucking things. And in fact, I'm going to do something that I try not to do on a regular basis. Pull out one of the books here. Try not to fling thumbtacks everywhere. But in fact, I got to this was when we were just doing 3.5, and this book has gotten to the point where I've opened it to the same section, the equipment section, so many times that when you just naturally let the book fall open, it ends up on equipment. Because that was one of my main focuses. The shovel. Who gets a shovel? Nobody ever gets a shovel. You know how cool a shovel is? It's a weapon. Okay, maybe that's not a weapon, but you can come up with some cool think, okay, if I don't have a scythe or a battle axe or spells, what could I do with a shovel? Well, the enemies are attacking from one side. Dig some potholes and watch them trip like morons into the fucking potholes. or dig a trench. Just watch people fall into the trenches. 3.5 has this giant table here that has all these items in it, and I can guarantee that almost nobody has bought most of these items. Fishing hooks and fishing hooks and rods. You know how cool it is to be able to cast out and catch somebody's ear and snag it, and that's how you start combat? It throws people off. You never fucking expect that shit. What else? Ladder. My character was a halfling. He had a donkey as well. I named the donkey Notwick in favor of one of my more enjoyable comics. But the donkey would carry around a 10-foot ladder just in case. You'd have no idea how many... You know when you're trying to cross the forge? Or ford. Yeah, not the forge. If you're trying to cross the forge, the ladder just kind of burns up. But if you're trying to cross the ford, just tossing down a ladder, so you like half of it is solved. Everybody just walks across the ladder. But nobody ever gets the ladders, right? They get cool shit like weapons and armor. The crowbar, always handy. I actually convinced the DM in the first game to let me have a wrecking bar, which is the crowbar, but it's a lot tougher and it's got the hook on the end instead of it being the cross. And a wrecking bar, you can grab onto stuff and crawl yourself up walls and shit. And, try to find me a DM that doesn't say that you can't use a wrecking bar to, climb better. You don't need the climber's kit. Fuck that. Get a wrecking bar. It's like 2 pounds as opposed to 10. I always had a lot of bags and locks. And one of the reasons why I had the donkey around, because the donkey was carrying all of the shit. But I always had a lot of bags and locks. Because nobody really expected you to, like, toss a lock on something. You'd be running away from the enemies. And I'm the fastest of them, but I would, like, make sure that everybody else got out. Turn around, shut the door, and lock it. All of a sudden, the orcs are banging on their own door, trying to figure out how to get the fuck through it. But I had, like, 10 masterwork locks. Oh, and the bags. The bags. Always carry locks of bags. Bags are always handy. Instead of your sneak attack, bag the fucker over the head. And then your barbarian has a real fun time beating him with a stick. or to carry things. As a DM, one of the things I always like to do between levels 1 through 5 is put a chest in a dungeon that's bolted to the floor that contains like 10,000 copper. So they'll walk up and they'll open the chest and here's this huge chest of copper. And yeah, we take it. Oh, well, how? That fucks with them. It doesn't fuck with them too hard because they'll leave the copper there, but it's still handy. Signal whistle. Nobody ever thinks about that, but it's audible. In fact, I think it's audible over a ridiculous distance. And of course they have it in some obscure section, and that's where I kind of really don't like this book too much at times. But signal whistle is really always handy. It's just a really loud pitched whistle that you can set off it'll alert everybody around you. It's like the horn of Gondor, except for it's a whistle. Torches, lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of torches. You never realize how handy they come in handy. How often they come in handy. Wow, this is going to be a great video, guys. Disguise kits, healer's kits. Even though I wasn't a healer, I had a healer's kit, because you can give it to the healer, and the healer always forgets this kind of shit, because he's all about them spells, right? Fishing nets, always handy. I always carried like 2 or 3 flasks of ink. And what that would allow us to do is if somebody was getting away, I was a halfling, right? So I had the good throw. I could throw weapons like a beast. And I would throw the ink up ahead, let splash on the ground, and they would walk through it, giving us easy tracking. And nobody ever thinks of that kind of stuff, but it's common sense to me. In fact, one of the best ones, oh my goodness, I'll share a story with you, is we were in a dungeon, and we came upon this area where there was an elevator shaft coming up the dungeon, which I thought was kind of strange, because I don't know when elevators were invented, but whatever. And as you walk into the room, it cues an event that the elevator starts coming up, and looking down the elevator, there's like 8 or 9 half-orcs, or hobgoblins. One of the two. It's a whole room full of people rising up to meet you. But I had on me a particular item that came in handy. I had about 10 flasks of oil that I had been gathering. So what I did was all the flasks of things were in one bag. So I took the bag and I started swinging it and I chucked it down the elevator shaft. So pretty much no matter where I hit, it doused everything in oil. And then the cleric just took the torch and dropped it. Just instantly kill like 8 or 9 people. Because by the time they reach up there, they're still on fire. They're trying to put it out and they're rolling around, but there's no room because this encounter packed as many people into that area as they could. And the orcs weren't expecting us. Hell no, they weren't expecting that at all. All of a sudden they're looking up, it's raining down some sticky shit, and then they're on fire. And I just gathered that shit up and I stored. It's like playing Fallout when you have the entire bag, like 500 pounds of shit that you'll never use. But it's always, handy to keep it on hand. There I go again. What the hell? I don't know what's up with that. Anyway. I told you about the shovel trick. I dug holes in the ground in one of our bases, so when they came in, they'd break their shins, or they'd break their ankles as they're running through. I always carried like 10 extra wet skins. It's always handy to have. Anyway, and the final thing was alcohol is always handy in D&D games and Pathfinder games and everything else. But alcohol is always handy because it's multi-purpose. And even in history, like the Civil War, alcohol won that war because they could use it to cleanse wounds. They could use it to ignite fires. They could use it as a tool of pacifism, a diplomatic tool. So my halfling actually had a specific area set out in his cart that was like a wine bin, pretty much. That I had like 10 bottles of the good shit, the fine, nice, ambrosia, the nice, fine ambrosias, and wines and merlots. And then I had about 10 or 15 just different bottles of hard alcohol that you could use it for anything. But I got the fire whiskey was what it was in D&D. So I had like 10 bottles of fire whiskey. And I actually convinced the DM he should give me a +1 on healing checks if I had used the fire whiskey on the wound. And then I had just like 20 bottles of rock gut. Just nasty fucking rock gut. Now, of all the items that I ever kept, those 50 or so bottles of alcohol that were stowed away in my cart were the handiest thing I ever had. Because I could get bonuses on pretty much everything using the bottles of alcohol strategically. So we'd be meeting with an elven dignitary. And I told you that my halfling was a talky son of a bitch. So we'd be meeting with the halfling, or the elven dignitary, and the talks wouldn't be going so well. I'd fail a few checks. And I'd say, well, here, let's split this fine bottle of elven ambrosia. I don't even know what ambrosia is. I've never had it before. I heard it's like nectar or something. Anyway, I'd give him a bottle of fine elven piss water. And it'd make it to where the gift of giving it to him gave me a bonus. And then alcohol also gives you a charisma bonus. So it got to the point that I'm talking much faster and much more articulately, which doesn't make sense that I'm drinking and talking better, but whatever. Plus I get, so all of a sudden he's on my side just because I had an extra bottle of Elven what the fuck ever sitting in my cart. Likewise, we'd meet the crowd of bandits that were wanting to steal from my cart because, that's where we stored all our loot. And I always made sure I had like 15 bags of potatoes as well to cover all of the loot that we had so it looked like we were just traveling with potatoes, which never worked because we're in like magical armor and shit and, people of the 5 races coming together to deliver potatoes across the farm. But I was trying to do that. But the bandits would come across and give us all your shit. And I would jump into the back real quick and hand them like, 10 bottles of rock gut. And go, here, please, take this. It'll bring a smile to your face tonight and leave us poor travelers alone. And sometimes that would work. The DM got savvy to that kind of shit after a while, though. But that worked a couple of times. Likewise, I would always keep a small collection of gems. Because you'd meet the fair princess of the castle or whatever, and I could gift her a gem. And I'm the lady killer, which is ironic that I'm playing the lady killer, but whatever. And I'd be able to gift her something. all of a sudden, so I don't know. I'm talking about my pack rat behavior and trying to justify it, I guess. Whatever. I like playing that rogue. That rogue kicked ass. I came up with ideas all the time. I would always point out that sand was always leaking from my pants. So I'd be walking along and like sand is coming out of my trouser shorts or whatever, and I never explained why, up until we got into a battle with an orc that was kind of kicking our ass, and he tripped me. I landed on the ground. I don't want to get up because he's just gonna fucking buffet me. But what I can do is I reached into my pocket, grabbed a handful of sand, and hit him in the face. Everybody in the party at the same time, oh, which isn't too witty now, but at the time it was kind of witty. So whatever. It caught the DM off guard. I'm just looking through here now. Sun rods. It's like the ultimate arcane glow stick. Nobody ever gets them. They're handy fucking things. Oh yeah, I talked about tanglefoot bags earlier. And tanglefoot bags, unless you're fighting something with... I'm sorry, the neighbor's dog is raising a hissy fit out there. Anyway, tanglefoot bags, unless you're fighting something with more than 4 legs, really helps because either you're going to trip them or it's going to hold them down, and all of a sudden you've got a mess on your hands. And this is just out of the player's handbook. The Dungeon Master's handbook, and I don't have it anymore, but I had something called Arcane Weapons. Man, this was all of the good shit right here. Like, you had items that... And nobody ever looks all the way through the magic items, especially if it's not a weapon, because everybody wants the weapons. But some of these cloaks, which I had a collection of cloaks too, which I kept at the base, but I had a collection of cloaks that were just badass things. The Cloak of Eyes, nobody can sneak up on you, which I know a lot of wizards that have that, but the potions, of course, you know about the good potions, right? The potions of like bull strength and the potions of healing. But then things like the potions of jump. That's handy, but you got to think about why it's handy. Jump gives you a plus... Wait, this is probably a lie, but jump gives you like a plus 20 to your jump check, which means you can jump Michael Jordan times 10. You just fly up into the air. And yeah, that's cool because you can get to places, but also as a combat mechanic that you can jump straight up in the air and you're gone for a round. You're like the Dragoon, and you come down with a land straight into somebody's spine. And of course, it always did damage to me, but as a one-time, hey, but you never thought of this. Oh, I forgot about these. The immovable rods. Another thing that I always had in my bag, which I'm starting to make it sound like my character was all about his bag, which he pretty much was. But the immovable rods, everybody thinks, okay, we can use them to climb. But you can use them for other things as well. For one, they're little tiny rods. They're not that big. And they're kind of hard to see. Plus, it's a free action to set a movable rod into place. Which means if somebody's chasing you, and they're a big old fucker, and you're trying to get away, which I know that they have... I'm about to just totally blow what I'm about to say. Oh, no, wait. Okay, so an immovable rod can support up to 8,000 pounds before falling to the ground. 8,000 pounds. You're running away from a big enemy? Set an immovable rod, like, behind you as you're running. The enemy hits it, poosh, doesn't see it, because he's running full fucking tilt. He's not going to see the immovable rod. And all of a sudden, he can't get through the hallway without, like, making, like, a really exorbitant effort to do it. Or, the other things I would use immovable rods for is if you were on a horse or something and you needed to make a dead stop, or you were on a boat and you needed to make a dead stop and just hang in midair, which comes in handy a lot of the times. For example, I would use it to heist other people's horses if we were getting chased, which happened quite a few times for some reason, probably because I'm a rogue and I was stealing shit. But the other thing you can do is take the immovable rod, you're riding on the horse, grab it with both hands, say the command word, and all of a sudden, horse keeps going, you stop in dead air, and just smack the person that's riding right behind you with your body. And if you got a good grip, of course, the DM is going to say, well, roll a strength check or something. But you're going to knock him off the fucking horse, entirely. Or better yet, use the same tactic. If he's riding right behind you, it's a thin path. Just reach behind you, set the immovable rod, and keep riding him. Watch him get the fuck knocked off his horse. You know, set it high enough so you're not hitting the horse. That'd be pretty bad, but everybody, you know, that's an item. Nobody thinks to use the item this way, and it's not that it's cool because why not? It's just cool shit. I always had a few meta magic rods on me to toss to the wizard. He never would think to keep them. And then there's a bunch of different types of rods, which I don't think I ever used those, but just, you know, using weapons in different ways than what they were expected. I always had scrolls of create water. Everybody discounts that spell, that you can create up to 20 gallons of water, but you're up in the air somewhere because you've got your immovable rod. You see an orc or something walk beneath you, and you just create water above them, and it just like douses their torches and shit. All of a sudden they can't see in the dark, and you can. You know, it just, I don't know if we're like trained by video games or the nature of these descriptions to treat items in a certain way, but there's just so many uses, and you can come up with some Rainbow Six shit with, which, you know, if you haven't played Rainbow Six, you were an espionage expert, you had all these cool gadgets, that's what made your character. And maybe in a way I kind of based him off of the Splinter Cell character. Can't remember his name right now. But there's just so many cool things in here that nobody really thinks about. I always like the bag of holding. Because you put something into the bag of holding, it like transports it to a temporary dimension or whatever it is. And there's been articles and paragraphs and diatribes written on that, so I'm not going to go into that. But at the same time, what happens if you wanted to capture an enemy, and all you have is this little bag of holding? What happens when you put your enemy in it? Does he just float in space? Pretty sure he can't get out on his own. He goes to the astral plane. All of a sudden you have a permanent holding cell for any prisoner you want. Bag of Devouring is the same way. The Bag of Devouring actually has a suck zone. Bag of Devouring is this bag, and it's got like teeth on it, and anything you put into the Bag of Devouring, it just eats. But it also has a suck zone in front of it, so you can use it, and I don't think it's in this one that has the suck zone, I think it was 2.0, but I do remember somebody that would run up to an enemy and slip a Bag of Devouring over their head, and just, it would just like, you know, chomp their entire body. Here's one that I've never seen anybody use. The chime of opening. All it does is it locks doors. It's this little chime. You go ting and it opens doors. I never see anybody use it. It's really handy. I'm gonna quit reading this to you. I don't want to be that guy. Here, let me show you all this cool shit. Whatever. Anyway, I just invite, as I found out with my rogue, I invite any player to look again at some of these items and come up with the unorthodox uses for them. Because as a DM, I reward my players greatly for surprising me. And in fact, I'm pretty sure I'm going to do another video on just all the things that people have done that I've just given them ridiculous bonuses for. Because role-playing is important, not many people do it, and it adds a lot of depth to an otherwise boring game. And as a player, you can make a level 5 character seem like so much more by just looking at the way that items act in the game and just come up with a new use for them that nobody's expecting, including the people that are living in the world that the item exists. Anyway, I think I'm done for today. Until next time, I hope you guys are having a wonderful time of it.